All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome into A Bettor Morning presented by Rival Fantasy. Rival Fantasy is your all-in-one fantasy sports platform. A little bit later on in the program, we will get back to the Rival Fantasy Challenges game, give you a couple picks for this weekend. You can head on over there right now to Rival Fantasy. Don't forget the Fantasy Alarm, Fantasy Football subscription. Also, get down with that. They're all pro subscription. I'm going to recap last night. Got some stuff to talk about as far as the games this week. All right, back up and at 'em. Don't know what happened right there, but we are back. Better Morning presented to you by Rival Fantasy, the all-in-one fantasy sports platform. Your boy Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, coming to you on a Friday morning, the 15th day of September, as we get ready to push into week 2 of the NFL season. Got a couple things I want your hands with this morning. I'm going to be talking about some players I want to keep an eye on this weekend. I want to know who some players that you want to keep an eye on this weekend as well. Drop those names in the chat with the eye emoji. So you want to keep an eye on Justin Herbert this weekend? Justin Herbert name, eye emoji, drop it in the chat. I'm going to be telling you some players that I want to keep an eye on this weekend as well. Got a very interesting matchup, and with two teams in the NFC that could actually be division champions this year. So I want to take a look at that matchup. But obviously, we start with Thursday Night Football last night, where we saw the Philadelphia Eagles defeat the Minnesota Vikings 34-28. If you took the Vikings at plus 6.5, you cash. If you took the closing line at -6, that's a push. Also, despite sharp money hitting the under, the over in this game comes out easily. So, good performance last night from Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson. Cousins 4 touchdown passes, 364 yards. Jefferson 11 catches, 159. Alexander Madison was a dog, but he did get it done in the passing game. Jalen Hurts, not spectacular numbers, but he did have a rushing touchdown, throwing touchdown. DeAndre Swift was really dominant last night. 28 carries, 175 yards. He got the job done. That is the best game that we've seen DeAndre Swift play since he was wearing a red and black uniform for the University of Georgia. And then Devontae Smith, 4 receptions for 131 yards and a touchdown. We did see the blow up on the sideline between A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. A.J. Brown obviously off to a slow start this season. So teams are doing things a little bit different to Philadelphia this year, and it's kind of frustrating them. You can kind of tell, and you saw that with Brown last night. So, but listen, Brown will be fine. They'll figure it out. They'll get it together. It's not like Steph Diggs and Josh Allen where you really think that Diggs is out to get Josh Allen, or as Michael Irvin said earlier this week, you need to slow down and they're making it emotional for him. So what? Got to get over it. As far as the gameplay goes, to be 100% honest with you, this game was pretty even for the most part. Philadelphia controlled time of possession because Minnesota only attempted 9 rushes last night for 28 yards, while Philadelphia was running all over them, possessing the clock. Also, 4 fumbles for the Minnesota Vikings. Not a good look. They turned the ball over 4 times. That was the reason why they lost. Minnesota Vikings are a team that this is a very scatterbrained, undisciplined team. Turn the football over. Don't make the right plays. This is a team that won 14 games last year, 11 of them by less than one possession. I was saying in the preseason that Minnesota was going to regress this year, and that they were going to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. Right now they're 0-2, and I don't really think things are going to be getting that much better for the Minnesota Vikings. Now the Philadelphia Eagles, they don't look as strong as they did last year. It's very early in the season though. Obviously they lost both coordinators from last year. That Super Bowl, that team that ended up going to winning the NFC and going to the Super Bowl, losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Eagles will be fine. The Minnesota Vikings, I'm a Viking supporter. I would worry about how undisciplined this team is. When a team turn the ball over, can't run the football, it just don't feel right. You know what I'm saying? So Kevin O'Connell, the head coach over there at the Minnesota Vikings, he's got to figure out a way to get this job turned around, get this thing done better, because right now I do think the Minnesota Vikings are a team a little bit of disarray right now, and it don't even really seem like they really care about it too much. Up next for the Vikings is a home matchup versus the Chargers. Then they go on the road to Carolina, and then they see the Kansas City Chiefs. Rookie wide receiver Jordan Addison, a couple of cats did a decent job. They got you some fantasy numbers that you were looking for, but for the most part, pedestrian performance from Adam. Well, he got a touchdown. TJ Hawkinson, who a lot of people were high on, obviously, 7 receptions for Hawk for 66 yards. He also had 2 touchdowns. KJ Osborne, 3 for 34 with a touch. So, and then Dallas Goedert was a guy that people wanted to see get it going this week. He had 6 catches for 22 yards. So you get a little PPR action right there. But DeAndre Swift was definitely the winner of the night for the Philadelphia Eagles. Coming up next for the Philadelphia Eagles, after their 2-0 start, they go on the road to Tampa. Then they're home for the Commanders. Then they're at the Rams. Then they're at the Jets. Then they play the Dolphins at the Commanders. When Philadelphia plays Dallas, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They could be 8-0 when they play Dallas. Philadelphia, for some odd reason, despite being the NFC champions, I'm about to say they have the easiest schedule in the league. They start out easy. Then after that, next Commander game is Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills. The Bills probably suck. 49ers, Cowboys, Seahawks, Giants, and then they close strong. Giants, Cardinals, Giants, 3 weak teams, but they do have a little stretch right there where it could get interesting. But for the most part, it looks like the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be fine rolling into the season. NFC matchup coming up tomorrow. It's coming up Sunday down there in Atlanta between the Atlanta Falcons and the Green Bay Packers. I think it's a quite interesting matchup, and so do odds makers and bettors, because the line keeps bouncing back and forth. This is a game that opened up with the Atlanta Falcons as a 1.5-point home favorite, and it immediately went to the Vikings. It immediately went to the Vikings, the Packers becoming a 1-point favorite. Then yesterday it pushed up to the Packers becoming a 1.5-point favorite. And then after it pushed up to the Packers becoming a 1.5-point favorite, the numbers switched back and the Falcons became that favorite. Now, the Packers do have some injuries, but this is really a battle in this game between square bettors and sharp bettors. That's why this number is moving back and forth. Square bettors, the public, have fallen in love with Jordan Love. So they're riding Jordan Love. And then obviously you also have the fact that the Atlanta Falcons historically are a terrible ATS team at home. So you have that right there with Atlanta, right? So you bank on that, them being a terrible ATS home team. And then not to mention the fact that the Atlanta Falcons are, Atlanta's terrible, and the Packers feel good about how they are with Jordan Love. Now, with that being said, the thing that interests me in this game the most really is the total in this contest. The total in this game is 40.5. And I immediately was like, that doesn't seem right. The opening number was 44. So basically, and this is what I pretty sure happened, because you kind of saw this yesterday. Be careful with these totals this week, because I think there's some pump faking going on. More than likely, somebody hit this number real heavy when it came out and dropped it down. But my guess would be in an attempt to come back and bet the over in the game. So that's why I would lean to over. I actually think this game is going to be a very close game. It's going to come down to the wire. I think Atlanta wins the game. I'm even going to give you a score, 23-20 in overtime. So I think Atlanta will lay the number successfully, not to mention the fact that the over will cash in this game as well. I think Bijan Robinson has a good game. I know if you are a Drake London fantasy owner, you are going to be in a spot where you are going to be keeping your eye on Drake London, because you want to see what he's going to do after that donut last week. The Packers have all kind of injury concerns. Aaron Jones, the offensive line, you name it, the Packers are going through it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Green Bay Packers. But I think they're going to come out. I think it's a tough game, but I do think in the end, the Atlanta Falcons are going to have enough to pull out the victory. Looking for an overtime win in that game right there from the Atlanta Falcons. One thing that I do want you to do this upcoming weekend, besides starting a free 7-day trial of Fantasy Alarms All-Pro subscription so you can get all the Week 2 DFS content and picks for free, I also need you to get involved with what we do over here at the Bettor Sports Network with the Bettor Cast. This week for Week 2, they're gamifying Week 2 on the Bettor Cast app. Pre-game questions are now live. Download the app and submit your picks. So download the Bettor Cast app. You got Week 2 pre-game questions now live. Predict what will happen in the game to score points and win prizes. Chat with our community in real time. Watch the Sunday's games. Play our free contests and win prizes. Download the Bettor Cast app in the Apple app and the Google Play stores. Now, told you I had a list of players that I wanted to keep an eye on this week. And I want to start with Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson, mainly because Jackson is the guy who I think is needs to have an extremely good game if you're going to see what happens with the Baltimore Ravens as they take on their division rivals and the Cincinnati Bengals. Like I keep mentioning, like how Lamar Jackson every year is drafted as a QB1, but so far it doesn't look like he puts up QB1 numbers. Now, he could come out here this week and go off, and we'd be happy because we would expect that. But this new offense and this air raid and this, that, and the third, I need to see it. I understand it's only been 1 week, and they did win the game. But now you have a situation where you're going in here as an underdog, and you're not producing fantasy stats right here. So I'm going to be keeping a keen eye on Lamar Jackson this week to see if he comes through in a big way, either getting the victory for his team and a tough spot on the road, or even better, being a positive fantasy asset for everybody who invested in Lamar Jackson before the start of the season. Another quarterback I'm going to be keeping my eye on this week. I keep my eye on Josh Allen a lot because you got to keep your eye on him because he turned the ball over too bad and he cry about it. Got a big matchup, Raiders and Buffalo Bills. Buffalo, a 8.5-point home favorite. They're one of the bigger favorites on the board this week. So the public is expecting big things from the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. I do think they bounce back. I think the team bounces back. I'm not sure Allen bounces back. If he turned the ball over too bad, he might get ran out of Buffalo this weekend. And especially if they lose that game, I think the Raiders are going to be live. I would take the 8.5 points with the Raiders. I think Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams are going to have fantastic fantasy games. I look at this game right here as a good game for DFS purposes. It should be a live game, a lot of points in this one. I think the Raiders will push Buffalo, so I think it'll be a good back and forth. Probably a game that's probably with inside a touchdown for me, so I do think you get value with the Las Vegas Raiders in this game right here. But really, everybody's going to have their eye on Josh Allen to see what he can do to bounce back from that god-awful performance in Week 1 with that heartbreaking loss that the Buffalo Bills suffered. So looking forward to seeing that game right there. Another guy I'm going to be keeping my eye on this weekend is Russell Wilson. Spoke about how I feel as if, his days could be numbered as a starting quarterback. Now, this week, Denver is a 3.5-point home favorite versus the Washington Commanders, the Commodores, the Commodes, whatever they want to call themselves nowadays. So you get Washington on the road out there in Denver. I would be very wary of laying points with the Denver Broncos. It's not something that I'm willing to do. And you really trying to back the Commanders on the road is a tall task. So really, it'll be a game that I'll be paying attention to with a side eye because really won't have no action in that one right there. But you do got to start to see some good things from Russell Wilson. Want to see him push the football down the field more. Want to see him get Cortland Sutton involved. Want to see that offense start to look like an offense that's ran by a guy who's a Super Bowl champion, because we have never seen that offense look like that since Russell Wilson's been in Denver. Now, I know Sean Payton just getting there and trying to turn that program around and get things started, but it's time to start seeing some results that this relationship between Wilson and the Denver Broncos is going to be successful, because we have not seen nothing to this point that would lead you to believe that. All I see is a red carpet celebrity quarterback who the coach already told him, stop kissing the effing babies. You know what I'm saying? Forget the political things. Stop trying to be a red carpet quarterback. Sean Payton is from the Bill Parcells coaching tree. So that red carpet celebrity quarterback, that's not going to work. And I do think that Russell Wilson's time with the Denver Broncos, his days are numbered. and I do see him hitting the bench at some point this year, and he's not going to take too lightly to that. Another player we got to keep an eye on this week is Kadarius Toney. Just a brutal week one for Toney. Like, I don't really feel bad for professional athletes, you know what I'm saying, because you're a professional athlete. But, I mean, unless it's like some kind of serious injury or some family stuff or something like that. But dropping footballs is something that you can control, young man. Not losing the game from the wide receiver position, which is almost impossible to do, is something that you can control. So I definitely want to keep an eye on Toney because I think the Chiefs are going to need them. They're in a tough spot this week. They're laying 3.5 points on the road versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, first of all, always be wary of a short road favorite, a road favorite under 4. That's normally a disastrous spot betting on that team. And then I also would look at the fact that, okay, you may get Travis Kelce back this week, but how ready is he going to be? And then he's playing like his first game of the season in the Jacksonville Heat. So take that into consideration. I like Jacksonville to win the game outright. So I'll take the 3.5, and I'm going with the Jaguars to win the game. But I think Kadarius Toney could have a nice bounce back performance. Like it was mentioned yesterday on the Sportstopia show that basically he was wide open on all of those plays. So they are scheming him open. Now he's got to do the job to catch the football and make the plays. So Kadarius Toney is definitely going to be a guy that's going to be watched this week with that mega AFC showdown between the Chiefs and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another player, well, that's not a player right here. This is a coach I'm keeping my eye on this week, Dan Campbell. Big NFC matchup, Detroit Lions, Seattle Seahawks. Detroit Lions riding high right now. I heard somebody else yesterday. They think the Detroit Lions can make the Super Bowl. That's the most foolish thing I ever heard in my life. Now, with that being said, if Detroit's supposed to be this good team, right, then they need to win this week. Because this week they're playing a good team in the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Seattle is not a team that you look at and think, okay, well, they lost last week. They Geno Smith, whatever. No, Seattle's a good football team. And let me tell you something. Pete Carroll is a Super Bowl winning head coach. He knows what he's doing. Dan Campbell, do you know what you're doing? So I want to see how Campbell operates in this matter right here. The Lions, a 5.5-point home favorite. A 5.5-point home favorite, right? You know, last week there was 2 5.5-point home favorites. The Vikings were a 5.5-point home favorite, and the Seahawks were 5.5-point home favorites. Both those teams lost. I feel pretty good that the Seahawks are going to go into Detroit and beat the Lions on what could be the most entertaining game of the day. And I would be pretty much certain that Dan Campbell is going to find a way to flub this up. So I'm keeping an eye on Dan Campbell going into this weekend right here in this mega matchup. Keeping an eye on Justin Fields. Winnable game, Chicago going down to Tampa. If you don't turn the ball over, you should be able to win this game. This is a game that the Chicago Bears, if they're going to be a contender like everybody told me they was going to be in that NFC North, then Fields need to go down there, play well, not turn the football over and get the win. So I got my eyes on Justin Fields. I also have my eyes on Saquon Barkley. You cried all offseason about this money, right? You look terrible against the Dallas Cowboys. Now you get a chance to go up against a Cardinal team that you should be able to have success against, running the football, catching the football, giving fantasy owners what they desire, and helping the New York Giants get a win. Giants are a road favorite in this one. That number is dropping because how can you trust the Giants after they got donutted last week? But here's the deal. Saquon Barkley, you said that you were the best player on this team. Well, now you got to run them to a victory this weekend in Arizona. So those are players that I am going to be having my eye on in week number 2. Also, another thing I'm going to be doing in week number 2 is I'm going to be playing in the challenges game over at Rival Fantasy. So let's hop on over there right now to the Rival Fantasy in-show studio and look at what we have. Justin Herbert versus Tua. I think I'll take Herbert right here because I think that and I'm gonna use my bonus. If you got a bonus, you can use your bonus. I think that Tua is going to have a tough time with the New England Patriots secondary and the New England Patriots defense on Sunday night. So I'm going to go with Justin Herbert in that game that he is going in right there. There you go, easy to confirm. Stephon Diggs, Fantasy Challenge versus Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think both people are going to be in a high-scoring affair. I trust Jared Goff better, so I would go with St. Brown. So there you go right there. There goes 2 plays for Rival Fantasy this upcoming weekend. I want to wish everybody a very good weekend. I hope you are successful in your fantasy sports plays. I hope you are successful in your sports betting. Make sure that you are involved with the Bettorcast. For the lovely and talented Heather Klein, it is the fantasy executive Corey Parson. Stay tuned for Sportstopia coming up. Fantasy Fire and Ice MLB with my man Chris Crawford. And who's in that seat next to Chris Crawford today is Drew Silver. So check that out. Wishing you all a better morning. We are out.